But let's move on to Joe Biden. Leon,
Joe Biden.
He is concerned about Britain's Rwanda policy and feels it could hurt the Northern Ireland peace process. My view on that is, what's it got to do with you?
I agree with you, although I don't think the Rwanda policy is a good policy, but I do agree with you there, Kevin. Why is Joe Biden interrupting effectively our own domestic policies? We don't do the same to America. And I think we've seen this throughout the years, actually, with the US trying to show their influence on the UK. We saw it with Barack Obama during the Brexit debate, saying we'd be at the back of the queue for a trade deal. We're seeing it now with Joe Biden trying to step up for Ireland at every given point, just to show that he's Irish, to appeal to the Irish Americans. And I think it's him playing politics in the US. He's got an election to contend with next year as well, so he's trying to shore up his own position. And I think, actually, again, it's not good diplomacy.
But it seems to be a sort of a Democrats problem in America, doesn't it? Most people on the Republican side appreciate the so-called special relationship and that we are natural bedfellows in the wider world. And yet there is something about the Democrats in America which wants to cleave away from Britain somehow, as if we're shameful, as if we're a reminder of some dark past.
Yeah, I think you're right, Alex, that there is this sense, certainly on the left of American politics, and let's not forget, it's got more left-wing in America than it's ever been, I think. You know, it used to be that the Republicans and Democrats were broadly centre-right and the Republicans more to the right. But actually, the Democrats now are very far left, and they do see the UK as not this sort of natural partner to them. But we've got so much in common. The US-UK partnership is hugely important, not just for us, but for the entire world in terms of stability, and I think we have to preserve it.
It's a special relationship. We look to them for guidance and advice, and they don't know where we are on the map. But there you are. Let's talk about the migrants. 8 more small boats full of migrants wrapped in red blankets arrived in Dover yesterday. 364, no less, arrived on Sunday alone. We've now gone over the 28,000 mark. Michael Gove actually says that the migrant crisis is now putting significant pressure on the housing market. And here's James Cleverly, the Home Secretary, speaking in the House of Commons yesterday about the crisis.
We have seized engines, we are breaking the business model, and we will continue to drive down those illegal those illegal small boat crossings until we have stopped the boats.
Oh, I mean, it's just constantly gaslighting, isn't it? Because any sort of move that they could make that should have a sensible impact, they're not doing. There's a sort of real lily-liveredness about tackling this problem. Why do you think that is? Is that just down to grandstanding in the international community and not wanting to be seen as the bad guys? Is it because legally they can't do anything? Are they in a bind, in a straitjacket, if you will, to act?
Yeah, I think it's both of those things, Alex. I think it is very difficult legally for them to do a great deal to stop this, because they do have obligations under international law to illegal migrants coming into the country. But also, I think it's because the government have run out of ideas, frankly. And I think you can say the 3 words, stop the boats, as much as you want. It isn't going to happen unless you take action to actually do that. And I think Cleverly's right. I mean, we do have to break up the gangs. That is the sort of core of this. You have to break up the gangs to stop them smuggling these people overseas. But there's a lot of ways you can do that the government simply just seem to be forgetting and ignoring. And I do think there is an element of, international law potentially hamstringing them with actually being able to have any impact.
Rishi should change his slogan to spot the boat. You can see them every day coming over from Calais. As I said earlier, Michael Gove said to Times Radio yesterday that the migrant crisis was now putting significant, unsustainable pressure on Britain's housing market. Let's have a listen to Mr. Gove.
It is the case that the migratory flows put more pressure on housing, but we haven't built enough homes overall for generations. This government is going to hit its target of 1 million new homes in this parliament.
Do you recognise that as a problem, Leon?
Well, look, is he talking about illegal migration or normal migration?
Good
because
point.
I think that's the question. And I think illegal migration has to stop. I mean, it's illegal, it's in the name. It has to stop, and people's livelihoods are being ruined as a result of it. I think migration in its normal circumstance, in my view, isn't necessarily a bad thing, but it has to be controlled. And I say that as the grandson of immigrants who did come to this country in search of a better life, and thankfully they got it. And I'm very grateful to the UK for that opportunity. But I do think that we have to control immigration to a point where our infrastructure can keep up with it, because immigrants are good for the economy, but it's then suddenly not so good on public services if you haven't got doctors' spaces, you haven't got housing, you haven't got school places, and I think we have to find that balance.
Now, are we giving Sunak a hard time over this? Because I heard someone saying the other day that this is essentially a hangover of Boris Johnson, the legislation he put into effect as Prime Minister, and the numbers are from basically the outcomes of that, rather than Rishi hasn't been able to do anything about it yet. Is that fair?
I think it might be a little bit fair. There's certainly some truth, and I think actually Rishi Sunak is more right-wing at his core than Boris Johnson ever was. It's just the perception of it doesn't seem to be that way. And I do think Boris was quite liberal when it came to immigration. He wasn't necessarily this sort of big tough guy when it came to things like that.
And green policies.
And green policies, indeed.
Maniac for green policy.
Yeah, and whether that came from him or whether that came from
I think
Gary,
we know where that came from.
I don't know, but you know, certainly he was this kind of cuddly liberal, even though you wouldn't necessarily think it. So maybe, I think there may be some truth in that.